Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today. My name is Johanna. I'm from the UN Innovation Network. Before we start, I just want to briefly say that it's fantastic that on the screen that you can probably also see, it says, it's okay, okay, perfect. So I like that we're already starting on a perfect note according to Zoom. Thanks for joining us. Really great to have so many of you here. This webinar is part of a broader learning series that we have launched at the Innovation Network. It's called Fundamentals of Blockchain. You can see the image on the next slide. We started it at the end of last year. And as part of this broader learning series, we're really trying to introduce blockchain technologies to people who may not be familiar with them. If we can advance the slide 2 forward, that'd be great. Then you will see that we have so far covered the basics of blockchain, really a very fundamental introduction. We've discussed risks and opportunities. We've explored the basics of cryptocurrencies. And we've also already listened to a couple of use cases on how UN entities are using blockchain technologies in their work. Recordings of all of these sessions are available on our website. I'm going to post a link in the chat in case you missed some of them and would like to catch up. And we feel it's really important to not just discuss the technology, but really dive deeper and see how the UN can apply this new technology. So I'm really pleased that we are going to continue with the deep dive today. And before I introduce you to our presenters, just a very quick note to say that, as usual, we are using the Q&A box on Zoom. Dino, if you wouldn't mind advancing a couple of slides. There's one slide that shows the Zoom box, just so colleagues can see it. And in that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, you can post any questions that you would like to ask our presenters. You can see what other people have asked, and you can upvote it. And that's particularly helpful to help us make sure that we're asking the right questions, and that's just the ones that are most relevant to you. Because it tends to be the most popular question, I'm going to say up front that yes, the webinar is being recorded, as you can see, and we're going to make it available. We'll send it via mail afterwards together with the slides, and you can also find it in the webinar library on our website. And with that, I would like to introduce you to our presenters. Just checking again if we can advance the slides. I'm not seeing any, I'm still seeing the cover on my screen.
Oh, you're not seeing the...
I'm just seeing the cover. So I don't know if it's me or everyone else, but there we go. Perfect. So here we have our presenters for the day. Thanks for advancing this, Dino.
Sure.
So very happy to introduce you all, colleagues, to Dino Delacio. He's the CIO at the UN Joint Staff Pension Fund. Dino has a background in audit, and prior to joining the pension fund, he worked at the UN's Office of Internal Oversight Services, I believe at OICT, at UNICEF, at the Italian government, so lots and lots of experience coming in there. And we're also joined by Shashank Rai. He's the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer at UNICC, the Computing Center. And Shashank has a background in IT and is currently advising UN entities on a wide range of issues related to technologies. And I believe he starts from very traditional ICT kind of questions to transformational technologies. And blockchain would definitely fall into the latter category there. So really thrilled to have both of you join us today. Dino, I'm handing over to you. If you would like to come back on video, that would be great. And then very curious to hear how the pension fund is using blockchain. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Johanna, for inviting the pension fund, UNICC, to share with the broader community our project and our experience in developing and implementing this solution. I hope that everybody can see the screen, and I will start the presentation and then hand it over to Shashank to go into deeper analysis and discussion of the technical element of the solution itself. So first and foremost, a very quick introduction about the pension fund, what we do and what is the volume of our operation. We have 135,000 active participants that fundamentally our colleagues and staff that work in 25 member organizations, the UN system at large. And we have, based on the latest market evaluation, fund and investment in assets of $74 billion. This is the real page that presented and introduced in our internet website, the deployment of the solution, which is called Digital Certificate of Entitlement. I will elaborate further and explain exactly what is the Digital Certificate of Entitlement and what in practical terms represent and means. Fundamentally, the pension fund during the last 70 years has confirmed and certified the existence of its beneficiary retirees by sending a paper-based form to each of the approximately 70,000 retiree beneficiaries that reside in more than 190 countries around the world using the regular and standard mail services. And in turn, the beneficiary retiree were asked to sign this paper-based form as a proof of being still alive, proof of existence, and send it back to, again, the same mean of communication, the mail service, back to the pension fund. So as you can appreciate, this has been affected by several limitations and problems related to delays, related to sometimes missing delivery and so forth. So we went from an as is of using mail services and paper-based form to the development of an application that uses innovative technology, specifically biometrics, blockchain, and geolocation for certain specific cases related to beneficiary retiree that opted for what we call a two-track system, where they receive their benefit in a local currency. So we attempt to transform a manual snail mail process into a biometric-based solution using a mobile application and a blockchain. What are the challenges? The challenges in front of us are summarized in this slide. Fundamentally, we had to transform a process that was 70-year-old. We had to take into consideration that this process affected more than 70,000 UN retirees and beneficiaries residing in more than 190 countries, using paper-based form, transmitted through 190 postal services, prone to delays and to errors, and also to questioning vis-a-vis whether the fund had the ability to prevent, avoid, and identify and detect potential cases of fraud, which, as you can appreciate, proving a negative is quite impossible. And also a process that when and if did not run as expected could have very serious consequences for the beneficiary, because it could have led to the suspension of payment. So in identifying, in defining, breaking down the problem, we fundamentally identified the need to provide 4 proofs: a proof of identity authentication, a proof of existence, proof of transaction, and proof of location. So in doing so, in trying to develop this solution, we definitely made reference and found inspiration in the recent strategy of the Secretary General on the use of new technologies. So we adopted the principle, the commitment, and of course, the mission of ultimately developing and creating something that will be of a benefit of the broader population vis-a-vis the Sustainable Development Goals. And this also represented, if you will, a milestone in the history of IT adoption within the UN in general, but specifically in the UN Secretariat. I try to just depict in this slide the first mainframe that in 1965 was installed in the UN Secretariat and put in the center what for us, for the UN Pension Fund, represented a milestone in deploying the solution, and also given the fact that we were able to provide input, and we are contributing to now a wider project that it aims at creating a UN digital identity for all of us, for all the staff members of the UN system. So in making the decision, frequently, often, I'm asked, how did you go about choosing and selecting a blockchain, and why indeed blockchain was found to be a suitable solution, answer to the challenges that I identified before? Here I'm using and I'm sharing with you, for example, a very good example that has been developed by the World Economic Forum that indeed created and proposed a decision tree on how organization can go about determining whether indeed blockchain is an adequate solution. Because as it's been recognized, especially by subject matter experts, blockchain is not really a very efficient solution and is not definitely a solution to all problems. So for those who are interested or intend to explore this technology, I highly recommend and suggest to go through this type of decision tree. There are many available in the public domain, and ask and try to answer the question that are proposed in selecting the technology itself. So for us, for the specific challenges and proof that we as a pension fund were supposed to address, we found this, this answer. First and foremost, the blockchain for us was a mean to provide and support proof of identity, but mostly proof of authentication, because allowed us to create an immutable, independently auditable, traceable, fundamentally a triple entry distributed ledger of the transaction that occur in the specific process of the digital certificate of entitlement. We then use facial recognition to store, to make sure that we could clearly and accurately identify, uniquely identify the user and the beneficiary, but making sure that we were going to store the detail, the biometric detail on the user device to authenticate themselves. And finally, as I alluded to before, we also adopted a geolocation in order to identify and to capture the specific information about the location where the transaction is performed for the specific cases that constitute a subset of the various certificate of entitlement that we process during the year. So in developing the solution, we created a very detailed step-by-step procedure that is available on our internet website and that has been widely used and referenced by our user since the beginning of this year when the solution was implemented and made available. We also created a YouTube video that is available to everybody. And indeed, here there is the address for those who later on, it only lasts for maximum 5 minutes and walks through the viewer through the different steps of the application itself. And also, I'm proud to share with you that we have been recognized. We have been recognized by Gartner that conducted an analysis, a review of our solution, and indeed documented a case study, which is available to Gartner members. So on their website, they publish this case study about the solution, as well as by a subject matter expert association that in the industry of investment and pension that have acknowledged the innovative aspect of our solution. So just to give very brief details about how we went about. We first developed a proof of concept. We then conducted a pilot. We then reported the result to our governing body, to the board. We received the endorsement and the approval to move forward with the deployment, which indeed was implemented at the beginning of this year in January. Fundamentally, these are the elements of the proof of concept. We had 3 objectives. First and foremost, to test the possibility of using and implementing an innovative and secure solution, to create a reliable application, and to establish its technical feasibility. In doing so, we follow 3 principles. The principle ensuring privacy and security, especially because we're handling biometric data, ensuring confidentiality and integrity, and ensuring flexibility and scalability of the solution. We conducted a pilot with the great support of our colleagues in World Food Program and FAO in 43 countries because we wanted to test and make sure that the application performed well also in areas of the world where the ICT infrastructure is not always reliable. We had very good result, and again, we reported those results to the board as part of our approval process. And finally, in making sure that we were able to provide adequate assurance about the security and reliability of the solution, we referenced a variety of standards starting from one of our organizations, the ITU, that develops specific technical specification on how to assess the availability of blockchain solution, as well as ISO standard information security and biometric. We engaged a subject matter expert for security, and we conducted security assessment in 11 domains, going from the high-level solution to for the future proofing of the solution itself. And also we conducted a review vis-a-vis control domain specifically related to privacy, and because we handling biometric data in 4 domains as depicted in this chart. So that's it from me. I will now pass it to Shashank, Chief Technology Officer of UNICC, for him to guide you through to the technical details of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dino. So very quickly, probably I'll just introduce UNICC and who we are, because I'm sure pension fund, all of us know, at least all the staff within the UN ecosystem knows, because that's what we are all working for towards our pensions. But for ICC, we are an organization that was established 50 years ago. We turned 50 in December last year by a General Assembly resolution. And the idea at that point in time to establish ICC was to provide shared IT services across the UN ecosystem. Back then, it was actually to run a mainframe for WHO, UNDP, and the UN Secretariat. And 50 years have evolved. We have had the pleasure of supporting the pension fund and Dino in their very transformative project using artificial intelligence, blockchain. Yet all said and done, we still run one mainframe. So mainframes are not dead yet. Administratively, we are hosted by the WHO. So it means all ICC staff are actually WHO staff members. Next slide, please, Dino. Just one slide back, Dino, if you don't mind, just quickly. Thank you. So just a very quick overview. We work in all sorts of areas. We run stuff in AWS, Azure. We do stuff for what we would call the UN private cloud solutions. So we do have 4 physical data centers, big rooms with full of big computers, where we run stuff under UN privileges and immunities, because these 4 data centers are declared UN territories. And we do have a number of professional services. In fact, in this case, we working with the pension fund are actually using the full gamut of services from UNICC, from the more modern artificial intelligence blockchain development services, all the way to actually operating this solution that has been built for the pension fund in our data centers. And again, as you heard, Dino, privacy was one of the key aspects. A number of factors were taken into account when technically the solution was developed. Next slide, please, Dino. So I'll just quickly touch upon pieces of technology that has been involved over here between this and the next slide. So biometric identity. As Dino mentioned, privacy was the key. There are a number of technologies available from Microsoft, from Amazon, from Google, where you just have to upload a picture onto their cloud and they will actually build a full biometric profile for you, and it can be used in different ways. But I think my personal view is, and Dino's view and the one view of the fund is that I think we are all giving already too much data to the big tech companies. And really for this solution to be successful, we really didn't want to take the beneficiary data and put it and upload it into different public clouds. So from a tech point of view, we really had to build something which could work on a mobile phone. And that was a big challenge for us, but I'm quite glad to report we were successful in doing it. So as Dino mentioned, the mobile phone, when the beneficiary undergoes the enrollment process, which is they have downloaded the mobile phone and they're creating their biometric profile, all the data, the biometric information is kept locally within the mobile phone. It's encrypted and kept secure in the mobile phone itself. Then the next technical challenge for us was, and for the curious, we are using something called MLKit and FaceNet machine learning, or what one would call artificial intelligence algorithms, which we have built on top and then embedded them in the mobile phone. The second piece of challenge for us was this proof of existence, because in theory, if I have a phone and I put my photograph in front of it, my biometric profile will match. So how do we determine whether somebody is alive or not, whether it's a real person and not a photograph in front of the phone? So we built this proof of existence where we randomly within a 10-second window ask the beneficiary to change facial features, smile and other things, and trap this information. Again, all that logic built such that it can run within the mobile phone and ensure that the beneficiary is alive. Then, as Dino mentioned, the idea of using blockchain was really to make sure the transactions are immutable, they're trapped and they're captured, so that when this digital transformation takes place, taking a 70-year-old process and really bringing it to the modern world, we can perform and provide all audits, correct information about what has actually happened. And that is where blockchain is playing a role. Again, from a technology point of view, we are using something called Hyperledger Indy. And as all of this technology was evolving, and as Johanna said, within the UN, we are all exploring different blockchains. I think to my knowledge, there are two operational blockchain solutions, the one used by WFP, and this is the second one that has come into production now with roughly 5,000 beneficiaries using this solution. The blockchain technology, it was evolving as well. So we had to sort of keep up to date with that technology. So when we started the project, there was just the Hyperledger Indy as a product. Then it moved on to something called Hyperledger Aries, which is a mobile wallet, which we are using as well. Thank you, Dino. Those are the two products from the Hyperledger family we are using. And as Dino sort of alluded to, the broader need for blockchain and that decision tree that was explored and used, I think it has also fundamentally served a very interesting use case for UN. And very briefly, it was actually part of the UNIN's Dragon's Den competition. And for those who have been following UNIN, the Innovation Network will know that a few months back, UNIN did a Dragon's Den. Number of ideas across from the UN ecosystem were pitched into it. And one of the winners was the UN Digital ID solution. And that UN Digital ID solution, this particular technology that you're seeing on screen right now, this is that fundamental building block to actually create that UN Digital ID. So really the foresight that Dino had when we were all in discussing and looking at technology to see what to bring to the table was the value the whole UN ecosystem can now benefit from, because as we build the UN Digital ID based on Hyperledger Indy, Hyperledger Aries, this biometric technology, hopefully the entire ecosystem will benefit from that. There's a lot more I can go into the details of the tech. Yeah, sorry, Dino, we can probably just pause here. From a user flow point of view, broadly, as I said, there are a few, actually, maybe I'll talk about an interesting story of how we all had to adopt to the whole COVID situation. So the intention, Dino, if you don't mind, I think if we go to 3 slides back, I think that is where the story will get highlighted. One more slide back. This one, thank you so much. So when we started the project, the intention was that when somebody is retiring from the system, they will download the app. They will sit in front of what is called an SPC, which is the Pension Fund Secretariat, the representative of the fund within a participating organization, the HR representative, and the person will install the app. They will go through a verification process, which will match any sort of physical ID, the person sitting in front of the HR representative with the biometric profile that's been created in the mobile app. And there will be a manual approval to say, yes, the biometric profile and the person using the app is the actual beneficiary. And that was an interesting approach, sort of in the sense that it would have really allowed us to match real identities of people to the one being put into the system. However, as all well-laid plans go, when the actual execution time came in, we were all under lockdowns of pandemic. And clearly, the fund did not want their beneficiaries who all fall in the vulnerable group to actually travel to different places for this manual verification process. So during the course of building this app, we had to really adopt to the situation. And one of the features that the fund then asked us to introduce is a call process. Now, today in terms of onboarding, when a beneficiary has created their biometric profile, they scan a government-issued digital ID, a government-issued ID, which could be a passport, a driving license, anything with their photo, from the app. The app sends it to a back-end call center, which is operated by fund. And then the beneficiary chooses a particular time of their choice to go on a video call with the call center. And at that chosen time, they basically open the app, they say join call, they're placed in touch with, on a video call with a call center operator, who then looks at their photo ID, who looks at the biometric profile and looks at the person they are talking to on the call and approves. And all that adoption of the process, all that modification was done in a very short time for us as we were adopting to the COVID problems that were coming in. So I think, again, from a tech point of view, we are using different technologies, but all of that is running in our data centers, in the UNICC data centers, to ensure that the data is not actually being accessible by any of the public cloud providers. It's sitting under UN privileges immunities. I'll pause here, Dino, maybe, and I know we might be short on time, so if Johanna if he can switch over to question and answers, if there are any.
There are some. I'm happy to give you another couple of minutes in case you want to wrap up.
I think that particularly I'll be repeating myself in terms of technology stack. One interesting question that is we are again asked and probably might be worth touching as people think of questions to ask. Why couldn't we use things like Face ID or the fingerprint scanners that are already built into the mobile phones of the today? Because any of the biometric features that are available in a commercial mobile phone, by default, neither Apple nor Google, they do not allow us to associate those biometric elements to an individual. The simplest example I gave is that on my mobile phone, I have a banking app, but my wife's fingerprints are also registered onto my phone. So it's my fingerprints and my wife's fingerprints. So when my wife wants, she can open up the banking app and she can put her fingerprint onto the fingerprint reader and the app will accept it. Because the only information that the banking app is getting from the underlying Android or iOS is the fact that a registered fingerprint has been accepted by it, and therefore the app has got a registered fingerprint information. So because of this reason, because we couldn't really associate, like in this case, the banking app will not be able to associate the fact that whether I opened up the app or my wife opened up the app. All it knows is a registered fingerprint was used. You cannot really use it for biometric identification of individuals. Hence, we had to sort of go in and build all this tech to do the facial biometric on the mobile phone itself. Yeah, Joanna, I think that's one potential question I do see coming quite a lot. So hopefully it preempts the answer to that.
Thank you for that, Shashank. Very interesting. You didn't see me, but I was nodding along as you were speaking. Thanks for a really great presentation and congratulations on a very sound product. Like this is a really, really great solution. Congratulations to you and the team. I'm going to take questions from colleagues shortly. Colleagues, if you have any, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. But Shashank and Dino, if you want to come back on video, feel free. Thank you. I just wanted to ask if the solution was actually developed in-house, as in is it with the ICC's own capabilities, or did you work with a third-party provider to develop this? Thank you.
This was entirely done in-house by ICC. So obviously we are using a number of open source platforms. So Hyperledger Indy, which is the blockchain, we are using the open source solution there running in our data center. But everything on top of it is being done by ICC. And I have the privilege of working with some amazing colleagues who are really at the edge of technology, and this is really the product of their hard work.
If I may add, Johanna, the only, if you will, help that we obtained from outside the pension fund, the UNICC, was a subject matter expert in conducting the security review, because we wanted to make sure that we had an independent third party outside our own system to review the system and certify its adequacy.
Fantastic. Ever more reason to say congratulations to you guys for getting this where it is now. Really very impressive. I have questions coming in, and the first one that I'd like to take is around pivots you had to take along the way to arrive at this solution. What are the processes that you've put in place to keep iterating? What are the biggest changes that you have made that you that were not based on the original assumptions you had going in?
So
well, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead,
go ahead.
Well, I mean, as Shashank alluded to, the biggest challenge for us was that we did not expect to implement the solution during a pandemic. We had a plan of visiting, presenting, and introducing the solution with our colleagues in the various locations of the world, inform and train our SPC secretaries, and so forth. But that with the pandemic, all of that had to change. And again, I had to thank and congratulate ICC because they demonstrate an amazing ability to be flexible, and they supported us in fundamentally implementing two applications to one, because originally the application on the phone was intended only to allow and support the biometric recognition and the issuance of the digital certificate of entitlement, of course. But on top of that, they had to build a scheduling and appointment component in order to manage that verification through the call center that Shanshan alluded to. So that was the biggest challenge and change that we definitely did not expect to have. But again, I also need to thank my chief executive, Ms. Rosemary McLean, who really believed in our application and provided a very strong sponsorship to this initiative.
And if I quickly add, so I think the whole pandemic thing, really, number of assumptions we made, we were adopting to. So one of the things, again, if you recall, the challenge was, we certainly found when people were not joining the calls, and it's all, so they've fixed up the schedule, but they were not joining the calls. And we realized it's a simple matter, because let's say you fixed up something in a week's time from now, and it was a simple matter of sort of sending them a reminder to say, you know what, you have a call coming up in next 1 hour or 2 hours or half an hour. So we had to adopt some of those things to really help beneficiaries use the system. And it's we all talk about human-centered design and user experience. I think for us as techies, it was also an interesting challenge, because the way we simply see this is the youngest person who's going to use this app is at least going to be 65, 66 years old. So, and then you take it up from there. So we're not really dealing with the TikTok and Clubhouse generation here. So that was an interesting technology experience to build something for that age group. Over.
Thank you, Shashank. And piggybacking off this, I'm going to take a question from Nuria, and she's actually wondering, how easy is it for retirees to use the solution? What is the feedback been among that youngest group of members that you have, and potentially older ones?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Well, the feedback was, I would say, positive, very positive, simply because we were overwhelmed by the number of requests of beneficiaries and retirees that wanted to adopt the application. And we had a limitation at the beginning, which was a physical limitation in the number of call center agents that could entertain the request and proceed with enrollment. There were definitely, I mean, I want to be extremely transparent. There were some challenges at the beginning. There were some users that had been used their smartphone mainly as a phone, so did not have familiarity while in installing an application, going through different steps, because indeed the application does require that, for security purpose, of course, that you go first through an enrollment process, then a registration process, and then the biometric capturing and the recognition and so forth. So there are steps that they inevitably require time and dedication. But I believe I can say confidently that those initial challenges were addressed. We try to be very detailed in providing the manual and the step-by-step guide, and also what was requested. And again, we were able to answer in a relatively short time was the translation in French and Spanish. So that was the request that came from the user in order to have the help of having the guidance in their own language. And we were able to respond, I think, timely to that request.
Thank you very much, Dino, and thanks to Nuria for the question. I'm going to give our colleague Srinivas from, I believe, DOS in New York, the floor. Srinivas, in case you'd like to unmute and ask your question yourself.
Hi.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me. Thank you.
Hey.
The question is about
sure, go ahead.
Benefits realization in the long-term business case of it. How did you go about perhaps justifying the investment and the context? Obviously, great work. So congratulations on this, because this really is paving the way with practical examples as such for where we can use blockchain technology. So congratulations on that. And of course, the question is benefits realization, and how do you justify to an executive audience? Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for that question, Srinivas. That was really the leading element of our initiative. One, of course, was the fact that this was #1 request from our beneficiary retirees in terms of their problems in dealing with the fund. Because as I alluded to my presentation, having to go through a process that, if for whatever reason, especially for reason often outside the control of both the fund and the user, vis-a-vis the fact that we were using the mail services of 190 countries, this could have had very serious consequences, because if the fund did not receive the digital certificate of entitlement, the certificate of entitlement paper-based, the benefit were going to be suspended. So that was #1 issue. When it comes to benefit realization, we were actually able to demonstrate the savings that we were able to achieve. And of course, as more people adopt the digital certificate of entitlement versus the paper-based, those savings will increase over time. And this was the focus indeed of the case study done by Gartner, is because dealing with 70,000 paper-based forms received throughout the year that they need to be scanned, that they need to be verified, of course, on a sample basis, but still need to verify vis-a-vis the accuracy of the signature. You can imagine how many hours of staff member in a year have been dedicated in the last 70 years by the fund, just in making sure that the paper-based form is processed every year, because indeed, this is a yearly process. With this technology now, we are able to fundamentally remove this workload of paper from the shoulder of our colleagues and enable them to dedicate themselves to client service and to more value-added services. So definitely the calculation and the demonstration of the cost per hour multiplied the number of forms for each year was an easy math to provide.
Thank you, Dino. A very compelling business case there, it seems. I see Shashank is already responding to a question from Eric, but I'd like to ask Eric to ask the question himself, because lots of colleagues are interested in it. Eric is from FAO, based in Rome.
Good afternoon. Yeah, my question is on the EU General Data Protection Regulations, which has the definition of the right to be forgotten after 10 years. And I was wondering whether this applies also to your EU right to retirees and beneficiaries, and how do you address that?
Thank you very much for this question, Eric. Yes, so this indeed was part of a review, if you will, a questionnaire that I addressed specifically vis-a-vis. There is a UN working group on legal identity that indeed referenced the principle established in the GDPR or in general in any data privacy regulation. The point is that what we are capturing are information that first and foremost are put on the blockchain, but that are not of private nature, not even in an encrypted form. So all private data reside and remain on the device of the user. One of the main principles of this solution was to make sure that the user remain always in control of his private data, specifically and foremost, the private data. Therefore, there is no transfer of information between the user device and the server, whether UNICC or the pension fund. And this is why at the very beginning of the process, we had to provide for a human being to verify the identity of the person. But once that identity is confirmed, all the data remain on the device of the user. And therefore, when the user stops being part of this process, then all the data is basically remain with the user himself or herself and can be deleted, can be disposed or whatever. What we put on the blockchain are only representation of the transaction, which are public data and which we don't even put in an encrypted form. So no private data reside on the blockchain or any other server used for this solution. I hope I addressed your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Potential to be a very, very tough question, but nicely fielded in the conceptualization of the platform. So well done to you guys again. Giving the floor to our colleague Eduardo from UNDP in New York. Eduardo, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, good morning from New York. Again, congratulations for this implementation. I was wondering, what are the implications of this for broader development challenges like proof of identity, refugees, universal basic income? Yeah, thank you.
Sure, maybe Shansha can speak to this. Yeah.
That's why I'll jump in here. So I think clearly the technology, fundamentally a lot of technology that is developing in this area is called decentralized identity, DIDs. The evolution is happening very rapidly. The intention of the whole fundamental technology is to really put your identity back into your hands. The next logical step, as I've already mentioned during my presentation, is that creation of UN Digital ID to really allow UN staff to be able to identify themselves to various disparate UN systems. Pension fund is one example. We all use, when we used to travel, we used to use a lot of the UN DSS trip system, or interagency transfers, all of those use cases. And the UNIN Dragon's Den pitch by WFP on this is quite compelling. It'll be an interesting watch if you look at that YouTube video. So this technology is already moving in that direction. And when we talk about identity, I think more or less we all think of identity as a username and a password. But identity is not a username and a password. That's an account. That account that is being created for you by your organization in an Active Directory or wherever. Your identity is attributes that are associated with you, your social attributes, your economic attributes, So for example, the number of dependents I have and for which I'm compensated by the UN system are part of my identity. And the idea of this underlying technology is to really put that information, as Dino said, back into the hands of users, into what is called blockchain wallets sitting in your mobile phone. And then the applications are numerous. Yes, I think in the substantive work different UN organizations do in the field, whether it is compensation to persons of concerns, whether it is compensation, to any individual. For example, if a population fund is involved in running a project for population census, capturing any and all of that information, the technology can easily be extended and used in different use cases. And before, again, we sort of, one of the hesitations people have, oh, but this is a smartphone based technology. So this means that people who do not have smartphones, this won't work for them. The same underlying principles can actually be applied to non-smartphone entities as well. So you can carry pretty much like a piece of paper with a, one of those QR codes, the black boxes with dots, the QR code on it, and that will actually be enough, a digitally signed QR code to identify you. And those are, I think, sky's the limit in my view on all of this. Over.
Just want to add, Dino?
No, I think I think Shashanka was very comprehensive in his response. Perfect.
I agree. So what we've heard, sky's the limit. we're out of time. I'd just like to pick up on the sky's the limit. So what are the concrete next steps? Where are you taking it? What's your plan end of the year or something?
Well, I mean, this opened up really has been very well said. Sky's the limit. For us now, we have implemented a solution that give us a relative good level of certainty and confidence in knowing that we are dealing with the intended user. So right now, we're fundamentally digitalizing only one process of the pension fund. Through this gateway, through this tool, now knowing that we are dealing with the intended user, we can start providing the full scope of client services related to pension. So rather than interacting through this application only for the certificate of entitlement, we can just start opening up all the information related to the processes of pension fund, enrollment, the disbursement, payment, and notification, and so forth. So it's definitely, it opens up a lot of opportunities.
Very exciting times ahead for you guys then. Thank you so much for sharing that, and best of luck with that journey. I am not anticipating that you guys are going to be bored anytime soon. Dina, Shashank, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the experiences from this project with us. So good to hear, such a fantastic solution. I hope it's going to go from strength to strength, and that we'll see it adopted across the UN. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, thanks to everyone who joined and made this webinar richer by asking questions and tuning in. We hope to see you soon when we present more applications of blockchain from across the UN system. You can find some on our website. The link was posted earlier. We'll of course share the recording. We'll share the contact details of Dino and Shashank in case you'd like to get in touch with them. So thanks so much to everyone, and wishing you a very good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.